Hey guys, welcome back to the Becoming TV series, exploring the deep truths and the principles that will enable you become everything you were created to be, do, and have. This is William Awada. So let's talk about the food of the soul. The food of the soul. Catchy title, huh? Yeah. I don't know if you guys are fans of '90s music, but I'm a huge fan of '90s music because that was, I think, my era. Because I um, really got into my own in terms of appreciating music and all of that. But my favorite types of music or type of music tended to be R&B, soul, and as such, I loved all those groups and singers that came out in the '90s. Whitney Houston, well, '80s, '90s, but specifically '90s. Uh, you know. Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, but I especially loved vocal groups, the vocal harmony groups, and of course, top of I think most people's lists would be Boys to Men. For any of you who remember Boys to Men in their heyday, and they had a song in the late '90s which was quite popular. It was called "A Song for Mama," right? A song for Mama, and it was sort of like an ode to mothers or to motherhood. And there's this particularly striking line that was in the chorus, the last line in the chorus, and goes, "Loving you is like food to my soul." Loving some certain lines that you hear in songs, some certain lyrics that you hear in songs that just grab you. And immediately you just get it, right? Even if looking at it, on paper may not really make it that clear. But when you hear it, right, in the context of the song, it just speaks to you. And that's one of the that's one of the lines, of songs that I've liked that have really spoken to me. Loving you is like food to my soul. Now, how does that connect to this particular episode? Well, this episode, like I said, is titled "The Food of the Soul." The food of the soul. So food and soul. I don't know if you've really thought through or thought about why we tend to use soul in connection to a number of things. Soul music, soul food, right? What he said touched my soul. I saw this movie and I felt something in my soul. There's soul this and soul that and soul the other. So the question is, why do we tend to use that word? Why soul? Why soul music? Why soul food? Why does what he or she say touch our soul? Why not our body? Why not our spirit? Why the soul? Right? And I think that's a very interesting question, and that sort of relates to what I really want to share with you on this particular episode, the food of the soul, right? So, what is the soul? I think we should maybe have a little overview about that. Now, the soul, I think I've talked about this a little in the prior episode, is really the medium, or is really a medium, right? And what is a medium? A medium is anything that stands in between the source of something and its object, right? So, for instance, in communication, there's the source of a message and there is the object of a message. So, for instance, as a speaker, if I were invited to, say, Japan, right, to give a talk on the Becoming series, and the organizers wanted to be really certain that the audience received the totality of the message, they would most likely get an interpreter, right? Now, as the speaker with the message, I am the source, right? The audience who has come to listen to me is the object, but the interpreter is the medium. Why? Because it stands in between the source. What's the object, what the audience receives. If he misinterprets my words, either deliberately or not, the audience will end up receiving the message, right? If I said for you to achieve your best life, you have to go out there and fight. And instead it says for you to, in Japanese, it says for you to achieve your best life, you have to go out there and grab a bowl of rice. right? Now the audience will be like, huh? In Japanese, whatever Japanese or huh is, and they'll be totally lost. Why? Because even though I said the correct thing, right, the message went out correctly. The audience, the object, did not get the correct thing. Why? Because the medium messed up the message. So the medium is responsible for transmitting the message or whatever data or information comes from the source to the object, right? Or rather, to people put it more correctly, we are a person, but we are composed of three different parts. Three different parts. So there's the body, yeah, which is what you see when you look in the mirror, what people see when they look at you. That's your physical being, eyes, nose, whatever. There's the body, and there's the spirit, you know. So, for instance, when someone passes on, we usually say he or she. For instance, in the Christian parlance, we say he or she has gone to be with the Lord, right? Has gone to be with the Lord. But there's something that we bury in the ground. There's something that we put in a coffin and we bury 6 feet deep in a grave. Now, what is that thing? If the person has gone to be with the Lord, well, what you have buried is just the physical case, right? The physical housing, right? If you will. That is what you buried. That is the body. Once you depart, the physical casing, is of no more use here, right? So that is buried. But the real you, the spirit, is what goes up above, right? Or whatever your interpretation of what happens to your innermost being, right? So the innermost being is your spirit, but there is something in between the body and the real you, which is your spirit, and that is your soul. Your soul is responsible as the medium for transmitting messages or data or information that it receives from the body. So the body, what we call five senses, your sense of sight, your hands, your sense of your ears, right? Now, every day you're receiving messages from external sources, what you eat, what you see on the TV when you're watching the Becoming series, right? What you listen to, right? What you read, right? When your friends talk and all of that. It's receiving data, information, ideas are being communicated. Now, all of these things are actually transmitted to the soul. The soul is the repository for all the data that it receives from the body. And then it transmits those things or transfers them to the spirit, which is you, right? So your attitude, whatever you display to the world as an attitude, is actually a manifestation of your spirit, right? But depending on what you receive from the external sources, from the soul, from the body, through the soul, comes to you. Now, if the soul receives the wrong things from the body, right? If the ideas that you're getting are just warped, if you're getting the wrong ideas about people, about things, right? All of these things will come to the soul and the soul will transfer them to your spirit. So it means that the soul has to regulate whatever it receives. Now, if all it receives is junk, it's just going to transfer junk to you, to the real you, right? So it's important for us to regulate what our soul receives, which is where the title of this episode comes in. The food of the soul. What is the normal function of food? Food to our physical bodies helps us to stay healthy, helps us to grow, helps us to maintain an equilibrium and all of that. So the food of the soul, or the food for the soul, is important to make our souls healthy. Is important for our souls to grow correctly. It's important for our souls to maintain an equilibrium. So you need to feed your soul the right things. Now, the chief thing, or one of the chief things um, that should be in the diet, using the food parlance of the soul, is inspiration. Inspiration. And just Think of it. Anytime you're down, anytime you're depressed, anytime you're anxious, anytime you're sad, anytime you're angry, you're upset, anytime there's something wrong, you watch a movie, when someone says something to you, when you read something in a book that just lifts you up, that energizes you, that makes you feel better, that just puts a smile on your face, what word do we usually use? We feel inspired. Inspired. We were inspired. I was angry, I was upset, I was sad, but I just heard him speak and I was inspired. I felt depressed for a couple of days and I went out to see this movie, and the movie was so great and it talked about so many beautiful concepts and I was inspired. Inspiration is one of the chief ingredients for a healthy soul, one of the very critical ingredients for a healthy soul. If you're going to make it through life, right, through this journey of life, you need to constantly find things that would make you inspired, right? Because it's a tough journey. It's a tough journey. You're going to face people, circumstances, events, things that will constantly um, get to you or get to you. Things will make you angry. Things will make you upset. Things will make you depressed. Things will make you not even want to go on sometimes. So you have to find a way to be inspired, to get inspired, and to stay inspired. You need to feed your soul the right things, because your soul regulates everything that your spirit, ultimately receives. So if you feed your soul correctly, if you feed it with inspiration, you would, you would stay inspired. And inspiration is such a strong motivating force that will enable you to go out there and achieve great things. So the food of the soul, one of the key foods of the soul, is inspiration. Get inspired, be inspired, stay inspired. Peace.